MPP to file contempt charges against BNI as Bureau releases head of security detail of party flag bearer Nana Akufo-Addo.
In an election year, that's when they come out with all these concocted stories. The one who hate violence at the NDC, they are touting, is President Mahama, but he is acting in a reckless manner, watching the state abuse the rights of its citizens.
Meanwhile, the party is accusing government of turning Ghana into, quote, a police state.
What the BNI have done is what we know happens under a typical police state. We have asked, has President John Mahama now declared Ghana as a police state? What the BNI did in disregarding the orders of the court is something that even the state may hesitate to do under dictatorship.
We'll hear from top officials of the MPP ahead of the crucial court hearing tomorrow. This is today's big story with me, Kwache Afreniama. The new Patriotic Party has vowed to file contempt charges against the Bureau of National Investigations. The party is accusing the BNI of violating the rights of 3 South African nationals and head of flag bearer Nana Akufo-Addo's security detail, Captain retired Edmund Koda. An Accra Circuit Court, as you may recall, granted bail to the 3 South Africans last Thursday, but the BNI has failed to release them. Well, Captain Koda was also held beyond 48 hours and was only released today. We will speak live shortly to a lawyer for these persons. But first, watch the Greater Accra Regional Chairman of their party, Ishmael Ashite, who addressed the press earlier today.
On Thursday, 24th March, the 3 South Africans who had been in BNI custody since the previous Sunday were granted bail with specific orders from the court that they be taken to the office of the registrar of the court while their sureties were being verified before their release. What happened next on the compound of the judiciary in the full glare of journalists and lawyers could only be described as the greatest form of disrespect and impunity against the office of the Chief Justice in particular and the judiciary as a whole. The BNI agents completely ignored the orders of the court, bundled the 3 men into a waiting vehicle and drove them straight back into custody. As we speak, ladies and gentlemen, the 3 South Africans are still in custody. In fact, they are in unlawful custody. They are being held against the orders of the court of competent jurisdiction, and they have been held continuously for 8 days, way beyond the 48 hours permitted by the Constitution of the Republic. They have not been allowed access to their lawyers. What the BNI have done is what we know happens under a typical police state. We have asked, has President John Mahama now declared Ghana as a police state? What the BNI did in disregarding the orders of the court is something that even the state may hesitate to do under dictatorship. It is one of the clearest examples of the state of insecurity that Ghanaians are increasingly experiencing under President John Mahama leadership. And the threat his continuous stay in office is posing to our collective security as a nation. For the government that sees nothing wrong with importing known terrorists released from U.S. detention in Guantanamo Bay to then go ahead and criminalize effort by the main opposition leader to enhance the capacity of the close protection unit of himself, his running mate and spouses is most rich and bizarre. It tells us that President Mahama has gotten his priorities all mixed up. It tells Ghanaians that the security of our nation is not safe in the hands of President Mahama and his NDC. Since Thursday, Captain Edmund Koda retired, the head of security of the presidential candidate of Ghana, biggest opposition party, has also been in unlawful custody. He has been deliberately kept without charge, without access to his lawyers, for 96 straight hours, beyond the 48 hours limit, after which a prisoner on remand must be brought before a judge. Let it be stressed, the man who was first charged in court had the charges dropped, then immediately afterwards invited to the BNI for further questioning, and kept incommunicado since last Thursday, is the same man who has the security details of the MPP Frabere, Nana Akufo-Addo. Before Thursday, Captain Koda have responded to every invitation by the BNI and was cooperating fully. We see the arrest, the timing of his arrest on the eve of a long Easter holiday, and the nature and circumstances of his detention as nothing more than a deliberate act of provocation. Furthermore, the lawyers of Captain Koda have informed us that his health condition have since gotten worse in custody, and the BNI has allegedly refused to give him the proper medical care. We are told by the lawyers that he was rushed to the 37 Military Hospital on Thursday night, but the BNI took him back to the BNI cell the next day, and his health condition remained critical. All manner of speculations are now rife in the public domain over the state of health of Captain Koda, and his situation has arisen mainly because the state has refused to provide us with any information on the detainee. Ghanaians must not sit unconcerned. The MPP will not certainly sit by and allow the democratic gains made by gallant patriots like Akufo-Addo over the last decades to be eroded under the corrupt, heartless, and incompetent leadership of John Mahama. For the BNI and any other police institution, for that matter, to have the liberty to disobey the lawful orders of a court, which has the constitutional powers to protect our freedoms, is a serious assault on our constitution, our democracy, and our security as a people.
So that was the Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the MPP, Ishmael Ashite. Now, that was all before Captain Koda was released this morning. Sami Oku, the national youth organizer of the party, had this message for the BNI and government at the time.
President Mahama has decided to act irresponsibly and reckless on the unlawful detention of these 3 South Africans and Captain Koda. We say this with all the force because if there were Ghanaian nationals who were being treated the same way in another country, it would raise concern. It raises international security. It raises diplomatic issues. And we will not sit concerned as a political party in an election year to have a government that seeks to use the state security, the coercive force of the state, to intimidate its opponent, to intimidate its political opponent. We will not sit down for the recklessness to continue. We will not sit down for the culture of impunity to continue. So today we serve notice, and notice is hereby served, that the unlawful detention of Captain Koda and the 3 South Africans must stop, and it must stop today. And that is what we're saying, and that is our position. That is what we're saying. If by 2 p.m. we do not have ample evidence that Captain Koda has been released, and in flesh and in physical, we are confident that we will also do everything within our power as a party legitimately to also move to the center where the recklessness is continuing.
And that means what? And that means what?
And that means that's what I'm saying. Moving on the street is taking to the street.
You use the word confrontation.
Yes, I said they will have to confront us on the street. Because if you have impunity at this highest level, complete flagrant disregard of the orders of the court, and you can, the danger of what is happening is that if we can have the government to act in the full glare, in such reckless manner, tomorrow it might be a media man, it might be a media practitioner. The very essence of democratic principles that we fought for, fundamental human rights, is being eroded. In an election year, that's when they come out with all these concocted stories. The one who hate violence at the NDC, they are touting, is President Mahama, but he is acting in a reckless manner, watching the state abuse the rights of its citizens. That cannot continue.
So that was the National Youth Organizer of the MPP speaking out after the press conference that was addressed by the Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the party. In fact, former Greater Accra Regional Minister, Mr. Ishmael Ashite, raising a number of issues. The MPP thinks that government, the President John Mahama government, is turning Ghana into a police state. A key concern they have is the fact that these three South Africans have been kept in BNI custody beyond the 48 hours. And this is, in fact, after the court, and Accra Circuit Court, granted them bail on Thursday. In fact, on Thursday, we heard from one of their lawyers, Member of Parliament as well, Mr. Atani, who mentioned that they had met all the bail requirements, yet the BNI refused to release them. But today we know that the head of security detail for the MPP flag bearer, Captain Koda, was released. And this was after the charges against him were also dropped by the Bureau of National Investigations. We'll be speaking to officials from the camp of the new Patriotic Party. In fact, we'll be hearing from the lawyer for these 5 persons, and also get the perspective of a governance aspect on, especially with all this happening ahead of a crucial election that is less than 10 months away. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us, and you're welcome back to today's big story with me, Kwachi Afreniama. We can now go on the phone line and speak to the National Youth Organizer of the MPP, Mr. Samuel Oku. Mr. Oku, thanks for joining us on today's big story. Hello, Mr. Oku.
Thanks for having me, Afre.
Very well. We know now that Mr. Captain Koda has been released from BNI custody. You've been speaking to him earlier. There are reports that he was not feeling too well. How is he now?
Well, let me say good evening to your cherished viewers across the world. I had about 30 minutes chat with Captain Koda this afternoon. Well, he has complained of a medical situation. And so the party is taking steps to give him the needed medical support and assistance. I can also tell you for a fact that he spent most of the time in the custody of the BNI. He spent it at a hospital inside the BNI premises at Kaukudi.
So this was, clarify this for me, Sami, before you move on. A hospital within the premises of the BNI?
Yeah, they do have a clinic there. The BNI won't deny that. It got to a point that the medical team felt that if they were not even taking, if they do not take care, they might even lose him at a point. So these are details emerging. And nonetheless, the NPP tomorrow will file some processes in court to bring the BNI, the officers and the boss at the BNI, because their practice is inconsistent with modern-day democracy and civility. We also believe that we cannot allow this behavior, this abnormal behavior, we cannot accept it as a norm in a normal situation. Today is Captain Koda, tomorrow it can be Afre or it can be Samuel. We cannot create a caricature, a monster, to eat us up someday. These people must act within the context of our law, and we will press those charges. tomorrow. We will file a case at the court, at the High Court.
Mr. Aku, we'll be exhausting what the legal processes will be tomorrow, what we should expect, because we have the legal representative, Nana Asante, to one of them, I must say. But tell me, the party seems, from what you are saying, to have concerns with how he was treated while he was in BNI custody, no?
Are you asking if the party has...
Yeah, I'm asking.
How he was treated?
I'm asking.
Well, of course. I mean, first of all, it shouldn't have happened because Captain Koda, Captain Ritadak, and the 3 South African guests were granted bail. And so the state went to court asking the court of law to remand them. The court disagreed with the position of the state and said even the evidence that they were backing their charges with to remand them were interesting. So the court, in its own wisdom, said the men should go home, but instead seize the passport of the South Africans, keep them at the registry so the bail conditions are fulfilled. The BNI, embarrassed in court, decided to disregard the orders of the court and to embarrass the Chief Justice Court as well and whisk the men away. We don't live in a jungle era. We live in a modern-day democracy. And Ghana cannot afford to lose out in this modern trend of democracy.
Mr. Guku, do hold on for me because I'll need to explore further with you the party's concerns and what you intend moving forward. Let me speak to one of the lawyers that you've contracted to deal with this matter, Nana Asante. Clearly, the party has instructed, sir, that you file contempt charges against the BNI. What should we expect in court really tomorrow against this backdrop?
You shouldn't really expect anything in court, as in an appearance in court, because whatever actions will be taken...
Nana, can you please speak up for me?
Yes, I'm saying that you shouldn't really expect anything in court tomorrow, because whatever actions will be taken will be preceded by processes that have to be filed. So the processes will be filed, and then dates will be set for appearance in court. So I don't think you can expect that there will be a hearing tomorrow.
Oh, very well. That's interesting. And so tomorrow we shouldn't expect that there will be a hearing, particularly concerning the issue of a contempt that you are pushing against the BNI.
No, because if you file a contempt application, the other side has a few days in which they have to respond. Then the hearing occurs. So it is not, you can't just walk into court and say, you're bringing a contempt application and it's heard the same day.
But Nana, interestingly, the 3 South Africans who were granted bail on Thursday are still in police custody. I'm wondering whether you've been engaging officials of the BNI on this as well. You seem to have particular concerns with that.
No, we have serious concerns with it. We have serious concerns with it. We have a situation where the constitutional rights of these South Africans are being violated, and they continue to be violated. We have a situation where an astonishing display of state power was put on in the well of the court, not outside the courtroom, not in the premises of the courthouse, but in the well of the court, where they literally snatched these guys against a court order requiring them to be taken to the registry and the processes for bail completed and taken back into custody. Now, it seems to me that is a signal that we're all at risk in this country. If the court is the last bastion of our liberties and the only guard against arbitrary action by the state officials, and the court says that somebody should be granted bail, and yet they are arrested, then certainly we're all at risk. So it's a very serious matter. And I think we should all be very clear about that. It is not some flimsy matter that we should be toying with at all. And then you have to consider the international dimension, because these are foreigners. I mean, these are foreigners who have not breached any law. And they're treated in such a manner. What would happen if the South Africans decided to go around rounding up Ghanaians with or with proper residence permits in South Africa and against the court simply put them in jail or deport them and so on. That's not, it's not right.
Nana Samuel Oku, the national youth organizer of the MPP, who is still on the line with us, was telling me earlier about the fact that Captain Koda indeed spent most of the time in BNI custody at the health facility there. Is he in good shape now? Okay, it seems we've lost Nana Asante-Bediato, his lawyer representing the three South Africans, and indeed the head of security detail of Nana Akufo-Addo. Samuel Oku, you say that you've already spoken and interacted really with Captain Koda. I'm wondering, what shape is he in currently?
Well, it could have been better. So we're trying to get the needed help and assistance that we can give him. Because as I said, the man ought not to have been in the custody of the BNI in the first place. He ought not to have been in the custody of the BNI in the first place. And just as Nana Asante-Bediato said, Ghana is a country of laws. If the court, our last resort when it comes to the protection of our fundamental human rights and liberty, the court can be completely disregarded and trampled upon its orders, then we have a situation at hand. We are in an election year. The arbitrariness, the recklessness, and the culture of impunity must be halted. Today,
before Captain Koda himself was released by the BNI, you gave a 2 p.m. ultimatum for them to do this, otherwise you hit the streets. Would you take the same line of action if the BNI continues to hold their 3 South Africans?
Tomorrow we begin a process. One, the NPP will use every legitimate and legal means to also make sure that the 3 South Africans who are currently being unlawfully detained by the BNI also secure their freedom. And mind you, we are only escalating the political tension in our country if you look at the conduct of the BNI. This is the same state institution that is asking us to trust them. You have these same security agencies asking the opposition parties not to engage the services of any expert, but to put 100% hope in them. And these are the same people who are caught in the violation of people's fundamental human rights. You cannot eat your cake and have it.
What should you expect? You've had a number of press conferences over the past few days. Yeah. It's been about the party agitating through a lot of talk. What should you expect in the coming days? From the NPP?
I think that you should expect the NPP adopting a much more robust posture when it comes to fighting for people's fundamental human rights. We'll do it for
a more forceful approach, you say?
That a more robust posture.
Which will take which shape and form?
Which will take using every legitimate means within our laws to ensure fundamental human rights are not trampled upon. Because if Ghanaians are being treated that way in South Africa, the state of Ghana will owe it as a sacred duty to its citizens to protect them. We do not want any diplomatic tension between Ghana and South Africa. But this government is taking us down a certain slope. And all of us as citizens must speak against this coercive use of state machinery.
Very well, thank you very much. Samuel Oku is the national youth organizer of the new Patriotic Party. Earlier, you heard Nana Asante-Bediato, who is representing the 5 men who were picked up. We know 2 of them have been released so far by the BNI. The 3 South Africans are still in BNI custody. That will be it for today's big story. My name is Kwachi Afredi.